what this represents?
Tell us, sir.
Maybe it's the calm before the storm.
It's just awfully good that someone with the temperament of Donald Trump is not in charge of the law in our country.
Because you'd be in jail.
Secretary.
Hillary's belief that it takes a village, which only makes sense, after all, in places like Haiti, where she's taken a number of them.
The country will see the United States will see the first gay president or the first woman president.
We already have it with Obama, so let's just calm down.
Got it.
You know Michelle is a trend.
And for the international order that we have worked for generations to build. Ordinary men and women are too small-minded to govern their own affairs. But order and progress can only come when individuals surrender their rights to an all-powerful sovereign.
Today's ceremony, however, has very special meaning. Because today, we are not merely transferring power from one administration to another, or from one party to another, but we are transferring power from Washington, D.C., and giving it back to you, the people.
So I have a lot of enemies out there. This may be the last time you'll see me for a while. A lot of very, very rich enemies, but they are not happy with what I'm doing. But I figure we have one chance to do it, and no other president's going to do what I do.
And until they release the flight logs, you, the mainstream media, Hollywood, are all pedophiles to me.
Everybody, FCB here. Hope you're doing well. Hope you're doing fantastic, and I hope you're all in amazing spirits. Welcome to the Decoders Den, Apokalipsi Part 2, The Reveal. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to give you the trigger alert straight off the bat. Tonight is going to be a mind blower. There's going to be some major, shall we say, revelations of my own, based on facts, evidence, and receipts. But we are at the end game now, ladies and gentlemen. We're not mucking around. We're at the time where things are becoming, shall we say, biblical. As Q has said, it is going to be biblical, and I guarantee you tonight is going to be biblical. The things that I've got installed for all of you to see, the videos that I prepared for everybody to watch, based on facts, evidence, and receipts, the documents, everything that I have, you will not be able to dispute. And I've been right about everything, ladies and gentlemen. I have been right. Like I said, this whole peace business, when President Trump went to Israel, it was all a farce. Okay, he went there and he's playing the game. He has to play the game and expose these entities. And they're exposing themselves. Remember what I said, this isn't the end. Netanyahu won't be satisfied, and he isn't. He isn't satisfied because, again, the Israeli Air Force has carried out major airstrikes and targeting Gaza. Let me tell you something. Netanyahu has just got his propaganda machine, you know the propaganda machine, TikTok, X, because we know that Elon's involved. And then also his little influencers. Netanyahu wants to bring in prophecy. And that prophecy is, ladies and gentlemen, the third temple. In other words, where the Temple Mount is, in other words, where the mosque, the golden, the gold dome, that has to collapse. And how is that going to collapse? In other words, ladies and gentlemen, they're preparing for that thing to be bombed. And when that thing does happen, it's going to be on. And don't you worry, I'm going to show you the facts and some receipts that they're preparing for all of this. In fact, who has been, shall we say, lining this up? Netanyahu. What did you think the Zionists formed Israel? Number one, we know it's to control mankind. The three major religions are based over there in Old Jerusalem. You control that area, you control the mind of the masses, and sure enough, they have. But now, ladies and gentlemen, they're getting ready because they want to fulfill prophecy and destroy the third temple. Now, why is this? And I'll tell you why. It's number one, it's part of their, shall we say, their prophecies, and they want it fulfilled. But then also, who else wants it fulfilled? The Christian evangelists, them. And I'll tell you why. Because they're waiting for that rapture, right? The good old rapture. You know, the ones where they keep promising dates and they never, look, remember, 23rd of September, apparently we're supposed to have the rapture then, but it didn't happen. So what they're saying is the evangelists is that when they see that the temple goes up, the third one, that's when they're going to be waiting for, shall we say, the end times. And what have they been doing? Building everything based on these end times. But the question is, ladies and gentlemen, where did the rapture come from? Oh, don't you worry. I'm going to blow that thing apart. I'm going to show you where, who was the one that created it. Because they say it's nowhere to be seen in the Bible, ladies and gentlemen. You type in the word rapture, you will not find it anywhere in Scripture. I'm going to show you that it came from some reverend, okay, back in the good old days of England, and then it's also connected to the brethren, exclusive brethren. Oh yes, no, don't you worry. That's what I'm saying. The facsimile and receipts are all here. But Satan Yahoo or Netanyahu wants to bomb that thing. He wants to get rid of it. All right? The mosque, the Al-Aqsa Mosque. In other words, the Golden Dome over there on the Temple Mount. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, he wants that gone. And you can see that what's happening right now is being fulfilled in their, shall we say, prophecies. So number one, back in the day, Jerusalem was the capital. So what President Trump made it the capital. Then they're recognizing Judea and Samaria. So basically everything is lining up. But there are other factors, ladies and gentlemen, that are lining up. So, how about we watch the first video? This is about Netanyahu, his thirst for war. He doesn't want peace. This whole thing about President Trump getting together and talking about peace, President Trump cut his lunch. He stopped him from achieving and destroying Iran. Remember President Trump said, there's going to be a black cloud over the Middle East. Oh yeah, he meant that what they were going to do was go there with their nuclear bomb and blow up, that whole nuclear base where they were enriching, the uranium, all that sort of thing. And then they were going to drop a nuclear bomb. Israel was going to do it. And then they were going to blame that it was the nuclear power plant or wherever they were enriching their uranium there. And they were going to blame that. No. They wanted to do this and to annihilate Iran. They want to expand Israel, ladies and gentlemen. Netanyahu has no intentions of peace. He wants to fulfill prophecy. Okay? And the other thing is Zionism. We're going to speak about Zionism because people think that it's been around for a very, very long time. No, it's only been around since the late 1800s. And what is this all about? Why is this all happening now? Because what they're doing is they've been lining things up. They've even got a specific committee. They're called the Third Temple. In other words, they've been preparing for all of this. It's all been in the cards. And think about this. How are they going to make it happen? They had to get rid of the Arabs, didn't they, ladies and gentlemen? They had to get rid of the Arabs and do the ethnic cleansing, or if, as you'd like to call it, a genocide or a Holocaust in their own backyard, while everybody was being entertained. And because this has been going on for a very long time, it's not something that's been going on just now or the past 2 years. It's been going on for a very long time. It's been happening systematically. So what they've been doing is they were preparing to get rid of all the Palestinian Arabs, all of them, so they can continue on with their prophecy. And Netanyahu has been using the same thing as Goebbels, because remember, Ashkenazi, Nazi, that's where it came from. Okay, the Rothschilds. Remember, Hitler is the grandson of the Rothschilds, and it's all connected up. Now, Goebbels, the one that did the propaganda machine, that came out of their playbook. And and what is Netanyahu doing? He's using that. After all, it comes from their playbook, ladies and gentlemen. They don't realise that everything they've been doing is by design, and they got no loyalty to nobody. They don't care about people. In fact, they've been using their people as human shields. And basically, we went through that in part one. So Netanyahu is basically driven to, number one, create the greater Israel. Number two, to bring in the third temple. He's been preparing for it, and he will do anything to make it happen. And you're seeing also, as I said, he's been getting he's been getting all these influences from the US. And who's the one? Remember what I spoke about, and I showed you in the first part one, which is about TikTok. I know we're going to revisit that one again, because Netanyahu is using TikTok, and this is the thing. It went from one, say the CCP, China, across to the state of Israel. And I'll show you the connections. Yeah, no, we got Twitter, we got X now as well, because X is connected also to the state of Israel through Elon. Oh yeah, and then who's got shares in X? Prince Al-Walid of Saudi Arabia. And remember, they're all working together. The whole Middle East is working together. Qatar and all of them. That's why President Trump is going to be speaking about the Qatarians. And then also, the thing is that there are people, which I'm going to show you, and you've seen, that have been pushing this agenda. They want the third temple, so then they can bring in this whole rapture business, the evangelists and all that. They want it to happen. So they've been helping. Oh, don't you worry. They've been helping the state of Israel all along. And they all know about this. This is the thing. The kicker is they all know about this. They're all in the club. Now, let's watch the first video, which is Netanyahu, I called it, propaganda machine.
בשנה הקרובה שתיכולה להיות שנה היסטורית לביטחון ישראל. אנחנו בתוך מאבק שבו אנחנו גוברים על אויבינו, ואנחנו צריכים להשמיד את הציר האיראני. וזה בכוחנו. זה מה שעומד לפנינו בשנה הקרובה שתיכולה להיות שנה היסטורית לביטחון ישראל.
נמשיך לפעול על מנת לעצב מציאות ביטחונית שתבטיח שמרצועת עזה לא נשקף עוד איום על מדינת ישראל ואזרחיה. אנחנו מממשים את אחת המטרות החשובות לשמה יצאנו למלחמה. מטרה שהיא התחייבות לאומית, מוסרית ויהודית. במעשינו אנחנו מעצבים מחדש את פני המזרח התיכון ואת אסטרטגיית הביטחון שלנו לשנים הבאות.
The most advanced offensive weapons on the planet. Things that none of the superpowers have. Developed by Israel?
Israel, a different story. Israel is a valued ally. We subsidize them $4 or $5 billion a year. It has a special place in America's heart. And Bibi Netanyahu will tell you, he's not concerned about borders. He's not concerned about the red line. the blue line, the green line.
If you ask me, am I really sure why Netanyahu, who is an absolutely disgusting warmonger, who has dragged us into terrible wars, who is committing massive war crimes, why he gets 57 standing ovations in the U.S. Congress? Is it the AIPAC lobby, the Israel lobby? Is it blackmail by Israel? Because there's no doubt a lot of credible claims of Epstein and more. Is it direct bribes? Is it fear of American politicians? Is it the mainstream media, which for a lot of reasons owned by a lot of billionaires that tend to be rather ardent Zionists? Is it the large Christian Zionist vote base, which is also a real thing? To tell you the truth, none of it really adds up.
I agree.
In full, because this is not in America's interest.
We all understand that Netanyahu did not want this agreement. It was imposed on him very brutally by Trump. And Netanyahu is still interested in doing everything he can not to abide by this agreement, because Netanyahu's very clear political, personal interest is not to abide by this deal, but rather to go back to war. And this, of course, runs against these personal guarantees that were now reported.
We woke up the next morning to find out that there had been this attack. And of course, I was called by the president.
You had no idea, obviously.
None whatsoever. You know, I think both Jared and I felt, I just feel we felt a little bit betrayed.
Now, I had heard that the president, that he was furious.
I think he felt like the Israelis were getting a little bit out of control in what they were doing, and that it was time to be very strong and stop them from doing things that he felt were not in their long-term interests.
People should understand that Netanyahu, the Israelis, bombed the peacemakers.
The Prime Minister of Israel goes on television to openly meddle in internal American politics, taking sides, attacking people, Americans, because they're not fully on board with sending billions more to a country of 9 million people?
He talked about the woke right, and he said, I call it the woke Reich. That's a brilliant observation. The woke Reich, because these people, you know, they're not any different from the woke left. I mean, they're insane. They're movies. We have to fight back. How do we fight back? Our influencers. And the most important purchase that is going on right now is TikTok, number one. And the other one, X. You know, so we have to talk to Elon. He's not an enemy. We have to fight the fight.
Meet some of the US influencers Netanyahu chose to meet with at Israel's Consulate General in New York, tasked with taking over TikTok and X in an attempt to shore up international support for Israel during the genocide in Gaza. First up, we have his own son, Netanyahu. His Instagram bio reads, "From the river to the sea, this flag, the Israeli flag, is all you'll see." On social media, he has denied the genocide in Gaza and blamed images showing malnutrition on genetic issues, attributing them to Palestinian incest.
I just want to remind that 45% of the marriages in Gaza are between first cousins, so there is some genetic problems there, and they presented it like he's suffering from starvation.
Next is Lizzie Svetsky, a pro-Israel influencer. At the roundtable with Netanyahu, she said,
I stick my neck out there and say the harsh truth that people don't often want to hear.
Back in February, she shared a video of Rabbi Meir Kahane, a figure who was even deemed extremist by Israel itself, once again calling it the truth, and saying that the only language Arabs understand is force and fear. And then there's Emily Austin, another Zionist influencer. She's publicly denied cases of Palestinian suffering, accused Palestinian journalists of being terrorists, and yet was still allowed to report at the FIFA Club World Cup. In one video, she said this about being pro-Palestine.
Imagine supporting people who start wars just to lose the wars so they can cry about it and then try it all again.
She was also invited by Trump to view the so-called Epstein files, which of course contained only flight logs and contact lists already public for years. Another influencer, that opinionated girl. formerly That Zionist Girl. Following her meeting with Netanyahu,
AIPAC is not an Israeli organization. It has no ties whatsoever to the government of Israel.
so this is the same AIPAC that coordinates directly with Israeli officials, lobbies for pro-Israel policy, and was set up after its predecessor was legally required to register as a foreign agent. The group has also funded hundreds of congressional trips to Israel over the last decade. Then there's Deborah Leah Schwartzman, a Trump supporter and pro-Israel influencer. She called Netanyahu a personal hero and one of the greatest politicians of all time, describing meeting him as the honor of her life. Previously, she posted that people supporting Palestine should rot in hell.
The people that are sympathizing with Palestine right now literally rot in hell.
And then there's Shay Sabo, the proudest Israeli American you'll ever meet. She says her compassion for Palestinians is why she does not support recognizing a Palestinian state while continuing to promote pro-Israel content online.
I care about their future so much that I refuse to endorse a plan that traps them under corrupt and extremist ideology and leadership.
It's certainly not the first time Israel has enlisted US influencers to try and counter the facts. In August, Israel allowed a select number of American and Israeli influencers access to Gaza in an attempt to counter major news organizations around the world and what they'd been reporting about the deadly nature of aid distribution in Gaza. And one such influencer was self-proclaimed Zionist Xavier DeRusso, who proudly said,
"If I were Israel, I wouldn't even provide matching socks to Gaza."
And of course, these individuals were the exception to Israel's total ban on international journalists from entering and reporting in Gaza. Netanyahu's interest in TikTok also appears to come at the same time as reports that the Trump administration is finalizing a deal with Beijing to move the app's US operations from Chinese to American control. And so, from Yair Netanyahu to Lizzie Sabetsky, Emily Austin to Deborah Leah, these influencers are no longer just spreading Zionist ideology. They are part of a coordinated effort to try and normalize and obscure the ongoing genocide in Gaza.
Anyone who opposes me in the United States, who opposes more aid to Israel or opposes getting sucked into war with Iran, which does not serve American interests, that person is not simply mistaken or wrong. I'm not going to bother to explain why that person is wrong. That person is a Nazi, part of the woke Reich, a Nazi. And the only way to fix it is by preventing Americans in the last country on earth with guaranteed freedom of speech, prevent Americans from hearing the other side. And so we push Congress to force a TikTok sale, which is true, by the way. And when that happened, and various members of Congress were like, no, really, it's about China, there were people online who said, no, I think it's really about Israel. Here he is just admitting, no, we pushed the U.S. Congress to censor in the United States, to commit censorship in the United States because we think it's bad for us. And we need to talk to Elon. You know, that's the point at which you just say no. During the 12-day war, such as it was with Iran, during that short conflict, there are a bunch of Israeli Defense Force officers in the Pentagon that week. And during that week, ask anyone who works at the Pentagon, they enraged American Pentagon staff by just barging into meetings, giving orders, making demands, and nobody did anything about it. How can a foreign military officer barge into military headquarters, even if invited, but barge into a meeting and start demanding, we want this, we want that, you need to get on this? The more you allow that kind of deeply unhealthy behavior, the more you're going to get.
Tech platforms like Google, Meta, they see themselves as neutral publishing platforms. Where is the line drawn between advertisement and what is arguably state-sponsored propaganda?
Yeah, I mean, and that's exactly why I reported this story, is that the title of the $45 million contract with Google literally says Hasbro in the title. So there's no, it doesn't take any sort of speculation here to know that this was explicitly a propaganda contract with Google for $45 million.
If you've been on the internet lately, you may have seen ads like this one, and this one, or these. They are part of a campaign by the Israeli government to manage its image on the world stage. This effort is known as Hasbara, which is the Hebrew term for public diplomacy. or propaganda, depending on who you ask. And the Israeli government relies on tech platforms like Google in this effort. In early September, the US publication DropSite News disclosed a document by the Israeli government, which lists Google as the supplier for its ad campaign. Here is the document, which you can find on the government's website. Google is named here, as well as its subsidiary YouTube down here. But Google isn't the only supplier named. Scroll down and you can see that Twitter, or X, is also running ads for $3 million. Google told Al Jazeera that the report is inaccurate and that the document is not in agreement with the Israeli government. It also added that all ads must comply with its policies. One of Google's policies prohibits making inaccurate claims, but a simple search shows that some of these misleading ads still exist online.
Any viewer can go through and check this themselves. It's quite easy to do. If you go to adstransparency.google.com, you can just select the Israeli government advertising agency and look through all of the ads, which shocked me.
These adverts aren't anything new. Last year, Wired reported that the Israeli government was buying Google ads to discredit UNRWA, the UN agency for Palestinian refugees. And if you go on Google's Ad Transparency website, you can see that in 2024 alone, the Israeli government advertising agency sponsored around 2,000 adverts. But in 2025, Israel has already more than doubled that number. So what do these ads say? In recent months, a lot of them aim to challenge reports of what's happening in Gaza. That includes denying there's famine in parts of the Strip, even though it's been confirmed by the integrated food security phase classification. These ads have also targeted organizations like the Hind Rajah Foundation, a legal advocacy group that seeks to hold Israeli soldiers accountable for war crimes in Gaza. Of course, Israel isn't the only state running ad campaigns on tech platforms, but this document seems to be among the most explicit in its language, where it refers to military operations like Israel's strike on Iran on June 13th, and suggests an ongoing working relationship between platforms like Google and the Israeli government. The Israeli government's use of tech platforms like Google is more than just marketing. It shows how powerful companies can shape public opinions during times of crisis, and how information is a battlefield where money and power decide which narrative the world gets to hear.
It's quite sickening, isn't it, ladies and gentlemen? Makes you sick to the stomach. Using an excuse as in that the way they look like that, the Palestinians look like they're being starved, is because they're genetically like that because of them committing incest. Are you kidding me right now? That is the propaganda that basically Joseph Goebbels was deploying. They're exactly doing the same thing from the old playbook. I mean, Q has mentioned that. They're going to use the old playbook, which they have been. And we know they have been. Now, Mr. Netanyahu, okay, he used that little Holocaust card, doesn't he, to hide behind a lot of things. They've been using it. These Zionists have been playing the little Holocaust little thing, but they're the ones that created it. They're the ones that did it in the first place. As we know, Ashkenazi, Nazi, we know who they are. After all, we know Hitler, granddaddy, good old Rothschilds, right? So, in other words, Mr. Goebbels, okay, happened to be the king of, shall we say, propaganda. There we go, Joseph Goebbels, the minister of propaganda for the Nazi regime. And you can see that basically future is proving past, ladies and gentlemen, future is proving past. Because look at this. What they're doing now, TikTok, they took it away from the CCP. They took it from China. But guess what? TikTok US it basically been led by the Israeli Defense Force, ladies and gentlemen. And remember, Mr. Larry Ellison of Oracle, and we know that was connected to the CIA. I explained that in part 1. But who is he also connected? All these three major players, all these major players are connected to Israel. Look at that. Israeli American born in Israel. Larry Ellison, Jewish American billionaire. One of the largest individual donors to the Friends of the IDF. There we go. He offered Netanyahu a board seat at Oracle. You can see, ladies and gentlemen, that it all connects up. Can you see how they created this whole propaganda machine? Google are involved. They've been running over now 4,000 ads. Now they're using their team of influencers. Okay, US. Now, you know what? Those influencers should be gotten rid of. Sorry. But they should take their passports and send them over there. That's what this is what I'm saying. They're committing treason on all levels. Favouring Israeli narratives. Look at that, TikTok and censorship of Palestine. And you saw that video that I showed you. They're doing it in Google. They're doing it everywhere. It's back to the Goebbels days, ladies and gentlemen. Back to the days of the Ashkenazi or the Nazis. All right? And I told you it's going to happen. I told you that this whole thing about President Trump going there was to expose those entities. That's what it's all about. Because never before have they felt so vulnerable. Okay? As I said, look at this. Israeli Air Force carries out airstrikes on targets in Rafah area, South Gaza. It hasn't stopped. They haven't stopped, ladies and gentlemen. They haven't stopped. In fact, Israel, did you know, they've got a video and they revealed how they've been operating inside of Syria for 2 months. Right? That's what they've been doing. He's been operating in Syria. And we know, who did they put in there? Who did they put in there? That terrorist. The president, who happens to be a terrorist. ISIS. Remember ISIS? We know what that means. Okay? To do with Israel again. Their little creations. And why does America, ladies and gentlemen, why does American taxpayer give $4 to $5 billion a year to Israel? Why? It's all because Israel has a special place in the US heart. Aren't people fed up of this? And then Tom Barrack, who happens to be obviously one of Netanyahu's stooges, but President Trump obviously friends close, enemies closer. He's going that Netanyahu can do whatever he wants. He can cross any barriers. He can do whatever he wants. So what does that mean? Then you got the ones, because it's not about, remember, the Jews, there's real Jews, ladies and gentlemen, because there are real Jews out there that are against the Zionism. Have a look in New York. Anti-Zionist Jews flood New York streets against Netanyahu. So when he was there visiting the UN, they were rejecting it. They were rejecting it. So this isn't about the people. This is about that club over there. And have a look at this. Oh, yes. Remember when I showed you about Bondi and that John McCain and how they're all connected to Soros and all that? How it's the illusion of the left and right. That's exactly what it is. Because look at this. No, this is Fox News. No matter how much of the world turns away from Israel, I will not. I will never. Who's saying it? Meghan McCain. Good old No Name's daughter over there. Lovely, isn't it? But President Trump has set the trap. But they don't realise that. You know what's coming their way? They've got no idea. And we know also, remember, think about this. Ukraine, the old Khazarian stomping grounds, okay? That's what it is. Have a look at this. President of the Ukraine, Vladimir Zelensky, has received patriots from Israel. So we thought we were going to get them from NATO. No. The Israeli patriot system is operating in the Ukraine because they're all connected. Khazarian, remember the Khazarian Jews, okay? They're all connected. And, you know, look at this. In Israel, soldiers assaulting a Palestinian woman as she tried to stop Israeli forces from seizing her husband's body after he was fatally shot during a military raid on the city of Nablus in the occupied West Bank. Now, for those who don't know what the West Bank is, it's basically what, Judea and Samaria. Okay, that's where it is. Let's have a look at this video right here, ladies and gentlemen. It is quite sickening, but you know what? The truth needs to be told. It's about time that the truth get told and the lies be revealed. Okay? It's about time. Here we go. Let's watch the video. So you could see, ladies and gentlemen, that they're not going to stop. They're not going to stop. And you're seeing this as well. Israel Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu warned Saturday that the war in Gaza will not be over until Hamas was disarmed. Who are the ones that created Hamas? They did. Okay, they're all involved in, well, look, the whole club there in the Middle East, they're all involved in the filth. Okay? Now, remember, they need an excuse to get in there and bomb Gaza to complete remember the Holocaust. They need to complete it. Okay? Remember, they've got to bring in the third temple. They can't have any of that there. They can't have, remember, who was the ones that was stopping him from going in there and doing all those provocations? It was, remember, the Palestinians. And now that they're no longer there, get ready for it. They're lining it all up for the destruction of that temple. That's what it's all about. And have a look at this. Oh, we're all about peace, really now, Netanyahu, because you dropped 153 tons of bombs on Sunday in Gaza. 153 tons. Lovely. Oh, yeah, and they all, they look like they're starving because they all got, they're all been basically committing incest. I mean, come on. Seriously now. And the Israeli army killed 4 Palestinians in Gaza in the latest violation of a ceasefire agreement, and medical sources have said. So basically, they're continuing on with their atrocities. They don't care because they're above the law, like everything else. Think about it. Dancing Israelis went there. They knew what was going on. Down when the towers, they were jumping up and down and laughing about it. And they left, right? They've been doing the biggest, shall we say, spying on everything you could possibly imagine, breaching national security. And has this one, ladies and gentlemen, they've been breaching national security, and yet you're paying $4 or $5 billion a year. How does that work? So it's basically you're rewarding them for committing espionage. It's sickening. It really is sickening. It's a sickening state of affairs. It literally is. And then they're using TikTok as a way of using it as a propaganda machine together with Google. That's why I can't wait. Q drop 1044. Google kill, Facebook kill it all off. Get rid of Zuckerberg. Get rid of them all. It's time to get rid of them. Okay, because Netanyahu, ladies and gentlemen, ain't going to stop. Let me tell you, I'm going to show you a video back when he was 28 years old. 28 years old, ladies and gentlemen. And let me tell you, at 28 years old, he still had those intentions. People don't realize that he's an asset. Why do you think he's been there for a very, very long time? He's been put there to do what he's been meant to do. And that is to create a greater Israel, destabilization, bring in the third temple, follow the Zionistic ways. Get ready, watch this video. Age 28 in the United States, because that's where he basically came from over there, okay? He was living in the United States, ladies and gentlemen, and he was basically groomed for the role that he is in today.
Mr. Benjamin Ptii. Mr. Ptii is a graduate of MIT. He is an Israeli, and he is a man who has written widely on this question before the House tonight. Mr. Ptii, is the issue of self-determination the core of the conflict in the Middle East?
No, I don't believe it is. The real core of the conflict is the unfortunate Arab refusal to accept the state of Israel. And I think, as was mentioned earlier, for 20 years the Arabs had both the West Bank and the Gaza Strip. Well, for 20 years we didn't hear a word about self-determination. And in fact, what we did hear, those of us living in the Middle East, was about driving the Jews into the sea. The statement was very simple. Our objective remains the destruction of the Zionist state of Israel. So let's keep in mind that what we're talking about here is not the attempt to build a state, but to destroy one.
Do the Palestinians have a right to a separate state?
Well,
Mr. Jum has been talking about human rights.
Well, I think that no, I don't think they do. The people of Palestine, quote, are part of the Arab nation. Well, let's look at the Arab nation. It has 21 states, an area roughly the size of the United States, and 1/6 of the entire world's wealth. Now add to that the fact that there already exists a Palestinian state, and that is Jordan, that Yasser Arafat and King Hussein, who are bitter enemies, agree on one thing, that Jordan is a Palestinian state. So what we're talking about is a demand for a 22nd Arab state and a second Palestinian state.
Can we have peace in the Middle East?
Yes, I sincerely hope so. Look, I'm 28 years old. I've had to defend my country in 2 wars and in many battles. Nobody wants peace more than Israel. But the stumbling block to the road for peace is this demand for a PLO state, which will mean more war, which will mean more violence in the Middle East. And I sincerely believe, if this demand is abandoned, we can have real and genuine peace.
Thank you.
Thank you.
There is no reason why, under either Jordanian citizenship or Israeli citizenship, these Arabs will not have the full human rights, the right to vote for their representatives. All I'm saying is that it is the Palestinian Arabs themselves, their leaders, Arafat, Hussein, who Morris Abrams quoted earlier, Farouk Kaddoumi, the number 2 man in the PLO, these are the ones who say they are part of the Arab nation. These are the ones who say they already have a Palestinian state. There is no right to establish a second one on my doorstep, which will threaten my existence. There is no right whatsoever
of Israeli dependence upon the U.S. in order to maintain its occupation on the West Bank and the Gaza. Does this not trouble you at all?
One of the things that I think is unique about Israel, in terms of all America's allies, is that it is perhaps the only one who has taken care of itself so far. And I would think that America, in fact, it's not a one-way street, Israel taking from the United States. Israel is giving the United States an extraordinary bargain in the Middle East. It's the one stable democratic ally which the United States can count on.
Inasmuch as you're a Zionist and are committed to a Jewish state, given the fact that demographic predictions tell us that there will be an Arab majority within the current borders of Israel, does this not challenge the foundations of the very state which you are committed to?
I know of the latest population figures, that actually show a decrease in the Arab birth rate, particularly in the West Bank and the Gaza Strip. Reject Palestinians or Arabs living in our midst? Ridiculous. Of course not. They're citizens of Israel. If they...
No, I'm talking about the West Bank and Gaza. You see, we're still going back to the core of it.
Yes, I agree. Whatever will be the final arrangement, these people should be free to multiply as they wish. I think that it is written in the Bible, multiply and be fruitful. I think these people should have that right. I'm not going to start enforcing a birth control program under any circumstance.
Why, in your opinion, the United States should oppose the creation of a PLO state?
I think the United States should oppose the creation of a Palestinian state for several reasons. The first one being that it is unjust to demand the creation of a 22nd Arab state and a second Palestinian state at the expense of the only Jewish state. Military guarantees, our own military guarantees against the destruction of people who surround us, yes, I believe we should fight for our survival. If I have to, I'll fight again, but I hope not to.
Netanyahu is not satisfied, ladies and gentlemen. You saw at age 28, he lied and lied and lied, and he continues to lie. Oh no, they should be fruitful. They should multiply and be fruitful. Yeah, let's go and drop 10 million bombs all over the place. And number one, Jordan is not Palestine. It's not a Palestinian state. That's a fact. Okay? That's a fact right there. So this thing about him saying about, creating a 22nd state and how, you watched part one, you saw that from Palestine, because it was Palestine, ladies and gentlemen. It was Palestine. And he's making lies, lie after lie after lie, because that's what Netanyahu does. All he does is lies. Okay, let me show you. Okay, because back in the holy days, back in the days of Jesus, all right, there we go, Palestine in the days of Jesus. And it's all there, ladies and gentlemen. There's Gaza. There's all of that right there. Okay, that's back in the day of Jesus. It was called Palestine. Okay, in fact, the Roman Empire called it Palestine. Right there. There's your facts. It was named Palestine. Okay, now Israel was the patriarch Jacob. He was a man. His descendants were known as Israelites. And there were 12 tribes of them, pretty simple, right? Pretty simple stuff. Not complicated. But you see what they do is they twist, they manipulate things around the place. They lie and they deceive. All right? That's what they do. Like Satan Yahoo does all the time. And have a look at that. He's going around provoking. You know what that is? That is underneath the temple. Underneath the Dome of the Rock. Underneath the mosque. Because basically, he's been about committing his own little Holocaust in his backyard. Okay? And now it's time to celebrate. Now they want to finish it off, right? By throwing bombs. No, we want peace. No, you don't. You never wanted peace. Even since you were 28 years old, you don't want peace. You can lie. You can lie as much as you want, Satan Yahoo. We know what you're all about. Okay? Now have a look at this. The hammers themselves are painted with what? The Palestinian flags, ladies and gentlemen. And you can see, what are they doing there? That is indication that they are preparing for the third temple. Oh, don't you worry about that one. They want to bring in their prophecy, and so do the evangelists as well. The evangelists want it because they want the rapture. They want to bring in that thing as well. And it's all, as I said, it's all been done by design. They've been getting rid of all the Palestinians, all the Arabs. So there's no interference at all at the Temple Mount. And have a look at this. Isn't that a lovely photo? That's underneath the Aqsa Mosque, which is the golden, the dome on the rock. Rubio's been seen excavating the tunnel with Netanyahu. Isn't that lovely? They're both evil, ladies and gentlemen. They're both evil. Have a look at this. The U.S. Secretary of State participates in opening of the Israeli settlement tunnel under the Al-Aqsa Mosque. No, don't you worry. They don't want peace. They don't want any peace at all. They want it gone. That's what they're after, ladies and gentlemen. The Al-Aqsa Mosque. They want to demolish it. They've set up a committee. A whole thing has gone into it. Purchasing land. Oh, don't you worry. America's involved in this. You're going to watch this video. It's going to blow your minds. Everyone's basically getting ready for it. And now that's what Q says. It's going to be biblical, because what is coming our way is literally going to be biblical. Now, that area right there is 0.144 kilometers square. Not very big. Similar in size to 20 football fields. The Al-Aqsa Mosque is entire compound containing Al-Qibli Mosque and the Dome of the Rock. Because underneath that dome, ladies and gentlemen, is the rock. It is known to Muslims as the Al-Haram Al-Sharif, and to Jews as the Temple Mount, this whole area. That's why they're sitting there. Think about this. What are they sitting there? You've seen them, hitting the wall, right? You've all seen that, right? That business. Why are they sitting there hitting the wall? It's like it's called the Wailing Wall, ladies and gentlemen, for a reason. The reason why they're wailing is because of that, the Dome of the Rock being on top of there, and they're waiting for their opportunity to build the third temple. That's what they're waiting to do. So that's why they're crying, wailing, all that sort of stuff. They're waiting for their third temple to be built, and that's what they're going to try and do, is bring in prophecy. They've been getting ready for it. Get ready. Watch this video right here. This is going to blow your minds.
Of rebuilding the temple is almost never discussed publicly in the United States, but there is a huge effort, by the way, bankrolled by a lot of Christians, just to be completely clear. In the state of Texas, for example, there's a whole foundation, a number of foundations designed to abet this. But there is this kind of behind-the-scenes push to rebuild the temple in Jerusalem, which would require destroying the third holiest place in Islam, the mosque, the Al-Aqsa Mosque. I've talked to a bunch of people about this who think that it's imminent, that it's not crazy to think that mosque would be blown up in order to make way for the third temple. Do you fear that? If that happens, what happens next?
Well, the extremism on display in Israel is, as I said, the most lawless in the world today.
ערב ושונאי, טוב לחסוד באדוני, מבתורה באדם, טוב לחסוד באדוני. דיבים כל גויים סבבוני, כי המילה סבוני גם סבבוני בשם אדוני.
Israel is the rogue state of the whole world. Israel flagrantly violates every limit. Israel goes to war where it wants to. It murders foreign leaders where and when it wants to. It acts with complete impunity and disdain. And Netanyahu thinks that he controls, and maybe he does, the U.S. government, so that whatever he does, he thinks he can get away with. So there's no doubt that there is a third temple movement that is part of this coalition.
We are here in Jerusalem, and today Jennifer and I and others had a chance to go see the Western Wall of the Temple Mount, the Western Wall tunnels, so much of the old city. And as you stand there, you can't help but behold the miracle before you. And it got me thinking about another miracle that I hope all of you don't see too far away. Because 1917 was a miracle, 1948 was a miracle, 1967 was a miracle, 2017, the declaration of Jerusalem as the capital was a miracle, and there's no reason why the miracle of the reestablishment of the temple on the Temple Mount is not possible.
No doubt that there are people in this government who have absolutely no limit, who talk openly about, well, they've already said, to make Gaza completely uninhabitable and unlivable. That is ethnic cleansing or genocide or a combination of the two. Well, such people do not have limits. Would this go well for Israel? No, this would be suicidal. But zealotry can be suicidal, and
Yes.
there's a lot of zealotry.
There you go, ladies and gentlemen. That was amazing, wasn't it? So they are preparing for this. Oh, you saw Mr. Hedseth. He wants that third temple. He talked about the miracles, didn't he? What miracles was he referring to, ladies and gentlemen? This miracle right here. He was referring to the creation of the Zionist state of Israel in 1947, 1948, the miracle. 1967, we saw what kind of miracle they were committing. It's called a Holocaust, a real Holocaust in their own backyard, genocide. That's the miracle that Mr. Hedseth's talking about. And now what he's talking about is the formation of the third temple. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, they're trying to bring in the third temple. And let me tell you something. The stars, you know what they say, everything's aligned for it. Now, you got to comprehend what they're waiting for. Why are they waiting for it? So I've prepared another video that's going to blow your minds. And this is to show you that there's certain key factors. That's the key, the word there, key. Key factors that need to be in place so they can bring in this temple, the third temple. Number one, that dome has to be gone. That's why you got this. Under the mosque, they've been sitting there excavating it. And why did they have the Palestinian flag on their hammers? Because basically they've done away with the Palestinians. There's no more interference. And you've seen how they're all going over there and they've been doing their blessings and this, that, the other, on top of where the mosque is over there. In other words, preparing for it. And don't you worry, they've been preparing for this for 2,000 years, apparently. 2,000 years. And to do what they have to do, there's a lot that goes behind it. And put it this way, when you watch this video, you're going to see that pretty much this is the year, and everything is aligned for this temple. Number one, for the Al-Qasr Mosque to be demolished. And number two, the rebuilding of the third temple. And what they're saying is that both them, the Zionists, and the evangelists, that they both want it. Yes, they both want it, because they with the temple, 7 years, after 7 years, that's where Christ is Jesus is going to reappear. That's what they say. The rapture, this, that, the other. That's what they want, to fulfill prophecy. So let's watch this video and we'll talk further. Here we go.
We will tell you all the news about the red cow and the third temple of Jerusalem. The Lord said to Moses and Aaron, "Tell the children of Israel to bring a red heifer, perfect, without defect, which has not yet been led. Give this heifer to the priest Eleazar, and he will take it outside the camp, and it will be killed before him. The priest Eleazar will take some of the blood with his finger and sprinkle it in front of the tent of meeting 7 times. In the sight of the priest, the heifer will be burned. Its hide, flesh, blood, and dung, everything will be burnt. And the priest, taking a piece of cedar wood, hyssop, and scarlet cloth, will throw them into the fire, burning the heifer. A man who is clean shall gather up the ashes of the heifer and put them outside the camp in a clean place. And it shall be kept for the congregation of the children of Israel for the water of purification. It is an offering for sin. But the last time this happened was over 2,000 years ago, and since then it could not be done due to a series of factors that prevented it. However, after 2,000 years, for the first time, it seems that everything has started to align to allow this to happen again. Firstly, the animal cannot be just any heifer. It has to be a completely red heifer. In addition, it needs to be perfect. It cannot have any spots, wounds, scars, or deformities. It has to be a female, that is, a cow and not a bull. It can never have been used for any kind of work or load, and it needs to be at least 3 years old. A heifer was sought that fit all these requirements, but none was found. This was until experts from the Jerusalem Temple Institute flew to Texas in the United States. And there they found a Christian farmer who managed to raise not 1, but 5 perfect red heifers. And on September 15, 2022, they were brought to Israel. Meaning that this year, in 2025, all the heifers turned 3 years old, which is what we said is the minimum age. However, of the 5 heifers that arrived in 2022, 2 were disqualified. We have heifers prepared, qualified for the sacrifice of the red heifer. And these 3 heifers are precisely the key to the third temple. If they need to purify the priests, the temple itself, and the utensils, and part of the utensils have already been rebuilt, we precisely showed some of them here on the channel. But these utensils are of no use if they are impure, and they are. We need the purifying water made with the ash of the red heifer so that they can be used. What else is missing for the sacrifice to be carried out? If a pure priest is needed to perform the sacrifice, which is a gigantic challenge, because practically all of humanity today is considered impure according to the Bible. For example, we all have impurity from the dead. Not only those people who have been to a wake or a cemetery, all people who were born inside a hospital. So we need a person who is a descendant of Aaron, belongs to the tribe of Levi, and who has never been near a dead person, never entered a cemetery, and was not born in a hospital. And part of the work of the Temple Institute in recent years has been to find a few people, specifically 2 people who fit these criteria. So the Temple Institute knows who these people are, but their identity, for now at least, is kept secret. So we have the heifers prepared, the priests chosen, and the land is also needed. And obviously they are not going to allow the sacrifice to be made here, but this area continues over to the other side, behind this wall. And precisely the land that is next to this one was bought by an organization linked to the Third Temple. What's missing is the altar itself. At the moment I'm recording this video for you, there is no obstacle to the sacrifice of the red heifers. The heifers are the key that will allow the temple to be opened and reused. But there are a few things missing for the Third Temple, and the main one is the location. Look at what we see here behind. The Third Temple has to be built in the same place where the first and second were. And the land these days is not available because the Dome of the Rock, the golden dome that belongs to the Muslims these days, is in this location. Without the red cow, there is no Third Temple. And without a doubt, we are closer to this than we have been in the last 2,000 years.
There you go, ladies and gentlemen. They are actually lining everything up. And everything has to be done in that specific way. The red heifer comes from Texas. So they had to go to Texas to a Christian farmer. Obviously, they want to bring in that prophecy. Okay? So they went over there and they've got a whole committee set up there, ladies and gentlemen. A whole committee. You saw that. A whole committee. They even got a Third Temple organization that has purchased the land and getting ready for it. And you're seeing that everything, I've got the God bumps right now because everything is lined up. 3 years. 3 years. The heifers turned 3 years. And now that everything is a go. Have a look at this. Do you think it's a coincidence why this is happening? Why did they, never before have you seen Netanyahu and Netanyahu, look who's there, Huckabee, Rubio, going there and chipping away underneath the tunnel. No interference whatsoever from anybody, using the colours of the Palestinian flag to chip underneath the tunnel underneath the Al-Qasr Mosque. Everything is lining up, and I've got the God bumps right now because everything is biblical. You can see that we are heading towards the end game. Now, Q has clearly said that it's going to be biblical, and sure enough, it is. QJ 4790. God woke us up for a reason. Biblical. Everything is biblical. In Scripture, Revelations 2:9, I know your tribulation and your poverty, but you are rich, and the slander of those who say they are Jews, which we know about the Ashkenazis, that they're not. They are Jews, but are not, but are a synagogue of Satan. It all should make perfect sense. Remember, their symbol, their flag, represents Satan. Zionism, ladies and gentlemen, Zionism. Everything is lining up, you could see. Everything is lining up. Have a look at this. That's their flag. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 points, 6 triangles, and 6 sides. That's why it brings us to this. 6, 6, 6. I don't know if you saw her, but it looks like she was flashing the 666 signs as well along that little conversation she was having. So God woke us up for a reason. We are living in very biblical times. We literally are. Q drop 4418, biblical. So you would see there's a lot of biblical references in the Q drops. Fear not. We are not helpless. Enough must see. It is the only way. You are being presented with the gift of vision. We have all been presented with the gift of vision. Knowledge is power. Ability to see clearly what they've hidden from you for so long. Illumination. In other words, they've been lying, deceiving, and it's all been in front of our very faces. Remember, satanic ideology, their deception, dark actions on full display. In other words, symbolism right in front of our face. And it's their downfall. It literally is their downfall. It's coming to an end. Their lies are being revealed. And the only way we're going to do that, ladies and gentlemen, is by being empowered. Do not invoke emotion. Be logical. Think logical. Stand in your power. People are waking up in masses. People are no longer blind. Do you think it's a coincidence they banned and prevented you attending the church house of worship? Anti-American, anti-God. One must only look to see, have faith in humanity, have faith in yourself, let light guide you, find peace through prayer, biblical. What we are experiencing right now is nothing short than biblical. The thing is, you would have seen this. Let me show you, it'll blow your minds. There are no coincidences, none whatsoever. You would have seen the Pope with a horse called Proton, or Proton. Let me just show you. The horse is called Proton, or Proton. What does Proton mean? Let's go to the etymology of words. Number one, it's a Greek word, ladies and gentlemen. And you know I'm Greek. So the etymology of Proton is basically, you know, it's a positive charge, but in Greek, it means the first, or protos, right? Protos, first, which means who is the first? Well, when we go to scripture, who was the first, shall we say, there's 4 horsemen. What color was the first horseman, ladies and gentlemen? White. White. And the horse, number one's called Proton. Protos is the first. And who is the first color horse? The white one. Conquest, victory, or pestilence. Some interpretations identify the riders as the Antichrist. So remember, everything is biblical. Protos means first. Proton is what it means. So then you saw the Pope, and obviously the Pope is going to be shown to be one of those who are basically a deceiver, right? Then what's next? Well, ladies and gentlemen, by no coincidence, we are living in biblical times, and red is war. What department just got changed from the Department of Defense to the Department of War? Who is the one that wants to bring in the third temple? Well, ladies and gentlemen, you're watching it here first time on the Freedom Channel broadcast, and you can see they changed it to the Department of War, and he happens to be the red horse. Did you see how I showed you how Pete Hegseth, you heard it with his own words, that the miracle should continue, and the third temple, here's the one that's going to bring it in. Department of War. The white is, as I said, you saw the one, protos, first. The second one, red, given a sword. And it was changed from the Department of Defense to the Department of War. And then you heard what Pete Hegseth said about the miracle should continue. Very interesting, isn't it? How you can't call it a coincidence that we got the white one first, proton. The Pope is dressed in white. Proton is white. Then the second one, him. You can't call it a coincidence. How many coincidences before you call it mathematically impossible? I've got the God bumps right now. We are literally living in biblical times. The renaming is alleged to be due to the enemy's pronunciation of the enemy. President Donald Trump on September the 5th, 2025 signed an executive order authorizing the Department of War. What do they call him? The Secretary of War. Oh, don't you worry, ladies and gentlemen, it is going to be biblical. That's why when Q says we are living in biblical times, it literally means it. Q drop 4465. Biblical. Amazing. Absolutely. You see how everything is lining up. The thing is, what we must remember, things have to be done a certain way. President Trump has to obviously expose these entities. And what have we been given? The gift of vision. That gift of vision has allowed us to see what's really going on. That gift of vision has been able to get us to see the satanic ideology for what it is. The deception, the guises, the symbolism, the anagrams. See past all of that. Also, ladies and gentlemen, did you know that the Jewish people do not believe in Lucifer? That's a fact. No, in Judaism does not believe in Lucifer. Basically, there no shall we say, in Hebrew, Satan means adversary. Adversary. Lucifer is something that's been created in the Christian religion. The name Lucifer itself comes from the misinterpretation of the Hebrew Bible verse that was not about the devil, but was referencing a Babylonian king. So in Judaism, they don't believe in Lucifer being Satan. That's fact. And as I've said, Satan is an ideology as well. Satan in Hebrew means adversary. Satan is all things opposite God, reverse. God is life, Satan is lived, mirrors devil. God is light, Satan is dark. God is white, Satan is black. Opposites. It's all to do with Freemasonry, board of control. The illusion of the hero and the villain. Have a look at this one. Satanists, if they took over the Vatican, would you notice? Would you notice, ladies and gentlemen? Symbolism will be their downfall. Let's have a look at some symbolism here. The apple symbol. Number one, in 1976, the first one was created by Ron Wayne. Have a look at this. The tree and this thing here, Apple Computers, it symbolizes the snake. So the snake is this ribbon that goes around, and there's the tree with the apple right there. Can you see? Then it evolved to the apple with a chunk, which represents Eve taking the bite of the apple. And it goes so forth and so forth. Symbolism will be their downfall. Chrome 666. Symbolism will be their downfall. Have a look at that. That's in the Vatican over there. Symbolism will be their downfall. That's part of their satanic ideology, ladies and gentlemen, is symbolism, deception, anagrams. That's what it's all about. The etymology of the word Satan, as I said, in Hebrew means adversary, one who plots against another. That's what it means. In Greek, it's translated as diabolos, slanderer, literally one who throws something across the path of another. That's what it means. Symbolism will be their downfall. Remember when we did that thing, I didn't do it, 666, that bullshit over there? Everyone believed that. Oh no, it's for the sake of your safety, your health. No, they were being conned by good old convid, all right? The 6 foot rule, they were committing a satanic ritual on the worldwide scale, ladies and gentlemen, Satan's deception. 6 to the left, 6 to the right, and 6 in front. That's what it's all about. Symbolism will be their downfall. And that's what I'm saying. We have the sight. God has given us the vision to be able to see through their disguises, to be able to see through their symbolism, to be able to see through their anagrams, such as Hamas, as Hamza. And we know that's all part of their little creations as well. We know what Hamza means. Okay, been through that many times, and you rearrange that and you get Hamas. It's like Santa. Rearrange those words and it's Satan, old Nick. Symbolism will be their downfall. And that's why God has given us the vision. That's why Q says, you've been chosen. Now, the other thing is, we've got to break some myths. You've all heard about the rapture, right? It's about time that people knew what that came from. And I'm going to give everyone a trigger warning now, ladies and gentlemen. It's time for a trigger warning. I'm going to show you, based on facts, evidence, and receipts, that the rapture is something that was created by a man named John Nelson Darby. Reverend John Nelson Darby, a writer. It's about time that people knew the truth about this rapture business. At the end of the day, it's about being empowered with the truth. Aren't you sick and tired of the lies? Well, meet John Nelson Darby. In the 19th century, the British evangelist, there we go again. That's why they're bringing in this prophecy, is credited with inventing and popularizing the concept of pre-tribulation known as the rapture in 1827. It is nowhere to be found in the Bible, ladies and gentlemen, nowhere at all. By incorporating earlier prophetic ideas into a theological framework, he was influenced by a prophecy from Margaret MacDonald. Okay, and it's about the pre-tribulation rapture as a secret gathering. And think about this. What have they been doing? You've seen these evangelist movies that they bring out there about the rapture and the rapture and the rapture. That's all been done by design. That is programming. But let me show you what John Nelson Darby's all about. John Nelson Darby belonged to the denomination known as the Exclusive Brethren. Who are the Exclusive Brethren? Who are they? Well, let me show you. Let's go here. The Exclusive Brethren are a subset. In other words, they stem off the Christian evangelical movement. That's where they come from. and generally described as the Plymouth Brethren, that basically they are distinguished from the open brethren from whom they separated in 1848. Now, I just showed you that Reverend John Nelson Darby, the very creator, no, don't you worry, it's all going to blow your minds right now in the moment, the very creator of the rapture, okay, because the rapture, ladies and gentlemen, is it mentioned anywhere in the Bible? No, it isn't. The Bible does not use the word rapture, but the concept of believers used to snatch up to meet the Lord is described in the 1 Thessalonians. So basically, there's no word that says rapture. It's nowhere to be found in the Bible. Now, the other thing is, what is this exclusive brethren? Who are the ones that were part of the club? Well, we know that good old Johnny over here, John Nelson Darby was, but who else, ladies and gentlemen? Who else was part of the club? Get ready to have your minds blown. Who else is a notable member, of this particular denomination? Now, you know that John Nelson Darby came from the good old Merry England, so to speak. Well, let's have a look. The notable exclusive brethren. There is a list of individuals associated with various branches of the exclusive brethren. Get ready, ladies and gentlemen. It's going to blow your minds. Alistair Crowley. Alistair, there we go. John Nelson Darby, the father of the modern rapture doctrine. But who is also part of that club? Alistair Crowley. Yes, Alistair Crowley. The evil Alistair Crowley. That one right there. He's part of that club. Oh, he's got an all-seeing eye on top of his head, the Eye of Ra. Okay? They're all part of the same club, ladies and gentlemen, the Rapture Club. You know what I mean? The exclusive brethren. Okay? Remember, they belong to the same club. Now, Alistair, basically, look at this. Alistair Crowley had a controversial connection to the Freemasonry. There you go, the connections with the Freemasonry through irregular lodges and orders, not mainstream ones. No. He was initiated into irregular lodges which were not recognized by regular grand lodges, ladies and gentlemen. While he was considered himself a Freemason, this was based on his membership in unrecognized body. So you can see that the connections already to the Freemasonry are there. You see how it all connects up? How these evangelists have been going on and believing the garbage that's been spread by good old John Nelson Darby that's connected to the exclusive brethren denomination. And who's part of the club? Good old Alistair as well. Oh, yes, no, don't you worry, ladies and gentlemen. Alistair's part of that club. Do you see how it all connects up? They're all part of the same bloody club, the Satanic Club. Okay? How does that one grab you? I don't think people will be, shall we say, rapturing very soon because that whole scam was set up by John Nelson Darby, whose connections, well, we know his denomination is to what? Oh, yes, the Exclusive Brethren. And the Exclusive Brethren Club, we know who's in that club, right? Well, we'll look at that. And we know that it all stems off here, all right? And we go down the bottom. It all makes perfect sense, doesn't it, ladies and gentlemen? It does. And how does it feel to be empowered with the truth? Because your Father, God, wants you to know the truth. That's what he wants you to know. Now, have a look at this. The notable exclusive brethren. Have a look at that. Alistair Crowley rejected his PB upbringing to become an occultist. Isn't that lovely? He was part of the club, and so was John Nelson Darby. And then you can see how it all connects up. Lovely, isn't it? I don't think these evangelists, they really need to get their head straight out of their asses and see what's really been going on. Because they've been lied to, they've been manipulated over and over and over again. And the other thing, let's talk about confessions. Since we're on the topic, we might as well talk about good old confessions as well. Because everyone, that little magic box that everyone goes in there, and then all of a sudden, you go in there, that little magic box there, right? Okay? And you go in there and you don't know, you could be with a pedophile, you don't know who you're there with, right? And they're supposed to absolve you of your sins, which we know that sins, in what it means is basically amartia, which in Greek, it simply means missing the mark. When they throw the spear and it missed the mark, they called it amartia. You're missing the mark. But they're trying to get you to miss the mark constantly and also keep you in a state of, sin. And they're making you feel that you're unworthy and you need to go and see the man in the magic box, right? And you know what I'm talking about is confession, right? Now, yes, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to blow that one apart as well, because I think it's about time that people got to know who created this little magic box. It was created by the Catholics. We owe the physical confessional to the Cardinal Charles Borromeo. In 1576, Borromeo became an abbot at age 12 and aided by the fact that his uncle, his uncle was the Pope. Oh, there we go. Invented the wooden confessional box to thwart physical contact between the confessor and the one that was obviously the sinner. You know what I mean? Now, the thing is also, we go to scripture to say, where does it talk about confession? That's the thing. Where does it say about confession in scripture? And there's only one place, ladies and gentlemen, one place. Okay, now let's talk about sin. It's called amartia, right? Now, amartia simply means missing the mark, off the mark, okay, acts of sin. Basically, that's what they created, right? To keep you in a state of missing the mark, telling you that you're not worthy unless you go to the pedophile in the box, you know what I mean, and confess your sins. Really now, confession, ladies and gentlemen, is not what you think it is. Confession, okay, because, these priests, what were the priests created? They were created by the organization so they can interpret the Bible. So in other words, think about this. Number one, let's talk about the Bible. Emperor Constantine was the one to create the Christianity as you know today. Period. Finished. Right? Then what happened was Council of Nicaea decided what made the Bible. That cuts out, this is not in, that's not in. That's why you don't know about a lot of things. Jesus' birthday, a lot of things are missing. It's like Swiss cheese, right? Then after that, to top it all off, right? Then you got the split, the schism that happened, okay, between the Orthodox and the Catholics, right? That happened. Okay, then what happened after that? You had all these other little splits going on, all these little Bibles popping up everywhere, and then also the English language, ladies and gentlemen. The Bible was written in Greek. Revelation in Greek. And think about this. Greek was going to be the international language. That was fact. But no, they created English, and I'll tell you why. Number one, to create confusion, because like I've shown you many instances in the Bible, like it says, the word sorcery. No, there's no sorcery. When Revelation was written by St. John the theologian, it's pharmakia. That's what pharmakia is, poison. That's what it means. So what they did was, they not only did they screw around with the Bible back in the Council of Nicaea, right? Not only did Emperor Constantine, change their Sabbath to the Sunday to worship the sun god, not only did we have a split schism and then all these different splits all over the place, not only did we have the English language come in and completely destroy, shall we say, the meaning of what was said in the Bible, so you've had all these things going on. Then you had all these different versions of the Bible. So everything's just been watered down, turned to Swiss cheese, manipulated. Right? Let's be honest. Now, what did they do? They created the priests. The priests, they didn't want you reading the Bible because there's too many contradictions. And I'll tell you why. They don't want you reading the Bible because then people started to say, oh, well, hold on a minute. What about saying keeping the Sabbath holy? Now you're on to Sunday. And then they didn't like that. So they created the priests. So the priests would basically be the one to interpret the Bible as part of what the organization told them to do. So in other words, no, just sit down and shut up. We're gonna give you our priests that they created, and they put it on this whole song and dance with all the, you know, the regalia and all that. That's all part of the bullshit, okay? And then what they do is basically they're working for the organisation, the religion, and then they're basically telling you all this mumbo jumbo that basically they've been indoctrinated by the organisation to say it in the first place. So everything here is basically screwed up. And that's what I'm saying, ladies and gentlemen. This is where there's a lot of contradictions. Number one, idolatry. You know what that means? Stop worshipping crosses, stop worshipping things made out of wood, steel, whatever it is, going back to the golden calf days, right? Stop doing that. Idolatry. Then also in Scripture tells you not to get a tree and put tinsel around it. But what do? Come Christmas, we do the actual opposite. We're worshipping idols, we're doing this, we're doing that, right? Then, on top of this, confession. Yes, James 5:16. They don't want you knowing about this one, but I'm going to show you, okay? Confess your trespasses, okay? So your whatever things you got, okay? To one another, not to a priest. It doesn't say go to the magic box, right? In James 5:16, confess your trespasses to one another. You know, that's what it means. I mean, you have a problem, discuss it with each other, confess it to each other, and pray for one another. Do you see? That's being in unity, ladies and gentlemen. God wants all of us to connect, to be in unity. Confess your trespasses to one another, not to a priest, not to someone in a magic box, and pray for one another that you may be healed. The effective, fervent prayer of righteous man avails much. There you go. Does it say to the priest? Does it say to whoever in the magic box? No, it doesn't. Do you see the manipulation that they've done to humanity? It's beyond, shall we say, it's just control. And that's what it's all been about, ladies and gentlemen, control. And you can't dispute it. Does it say priest there? James 5:16 doesn't say there's a priest. It says to one another. We can go to one another and confess, hey, I had a shitty day. You know what I mean? I'm confessing to you. Done. You know what I mean? Oh, you know, I screwed up. We're confessing to one another. It doesn't say go to the priest. You know what I mean? It doesn't say any of that. The priest was created to interpret the Bible as per what the organization's rules are. Period. That's what it is. Pretty full on, isn't it? Pretty full on. But the facts, evidence, and receipts, you can't deny it. It's all there. Can't dispute it. Now, this is the thing, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, we don't know what Bibles, whatever. You're saying, number one, you're saying it was Emperor Constantine, pagan, right, into sun worshipping, changed it from Sabbath to Sunday, worshipping the sun god, Sol Invictus. Okay, he was into Apollo, same thing. Then you had the other business, the sun. What do you put the cross? Ancient symbol of the sun. Then remember, he's a pagan. Then the emperor, what he did, he did the Council of Nicosia. They got together. They decided what made the Bible, what didn't. They created this whole religion business. Okay, they put their priests, their representatives, the ones to give you the word of whatever the organization wants you to know about. They manipulated everything. Look, they didn't want you knowing about all this stuff. Think about it. It's contradictory, isn't it? The whole thing is contradicting everything that they've been saying. And then you've got the rapture business that was manipulated and created by, somebody, part of the exclusive Brethren Club back in the 1800s, late 1800s, that is also, who's part of that club? Aleister Crowley. How does that work? And people still believe this garbage, seriously. And then you had someone that, the 23rd of September, we're going to have a rapture. Yeah, 23rd of September came, it went, and there's still no rapture because it never existed. Right? That's the reality. It was something that they created. And think about why. Don't you get it? Right at the core of it all is deception. Freemasonry are all based on, look, Aleister Crowley, you saw, is a Freemason. You've seen all these things, these symbols, ladies and gentlemen, and then you can see that the Pope even has it on his hat, on his tiara, whatever you want to call it. It's time for people to wake up. That's why, why Q has said knowledge is power. Because you know what? You can't dispute the facts, evidence, and receipts. You go into scripture and it's contradicting everything that's being taught out there. It's contradicting everything. You've been lied to, ladies and gentlemen. That's the facts. And then you can see, what are they doing? Everything's about control, manipulation. So this is why I say President Trump could got rid of the deep state, the cabal, and guess what's left? The damaged goods, ladies and gentlemen, humanity. Because guess what? They've been so indoctrinated, lied to, it's been embedded in their DNA, okay, from the amount of lies. When you say a lie often enough, it becomes the truth. When you pass it from generation to generation, it becomes concreted. Now think about this. There has to be a time where things need to change and everything needs to swing into God's direction now. Satan's been ruling this earth for way too long, using deception, and Satan's been ruling for way too long, ladies and gentlemen. It's time for Satan to go. You know what I mean? And Satan, as I said, it's an ideology. I've said this and I've explained it many times. And you can see that those that worship that ideology, who they are, what they're all about. That's what it is. The thing is, we need to put the armor of God and not have any fear. Get rid of the fear. Get rid of the control. And that's why knowledge is power. And then Q drop 382. We have tremendous worldwide support. Satan has left the White House. Day of Days, Department of Defense. Satan has left the White House. Was Satan setting up camp there? Think about it, ladies and gentlemen, from a logical standpoint. What is Q telling us? Did Satan actually stay in the White House, or was it the fact that the ideology? That's what it's all about. And we know Satan, if Satanists took over, Satanists, ones that follow that ideology, took over the Vatican, would you notice it? And this is the thing, these people, they go there, they think the Pope's all great and this, and they go into Snake Hall. Now think about this. You're in there and you're thinking to yourself, I've seen this somewhere before. Can you imagine these people? Or, isn't that lovely? They probably wouldn't even caught on. I mean, the eyes are there, the scales are there, the teeth are there, the fangs, and then you got the tongue that runs right in the middle. And then over there you got reptile Jesus. You know what I mean? Seriously, guys, it's time for us to wake up. It really is. And that's why I'm showing you all this. So it's time for people to see the truth. So anyway, I want to say thank you to Carol. Thank you to Soren, and thank you to all of you for your unwavering support. Please don't forget to hit the thumbs up, the like button. Put in a great comment. Let's share this all around the place. Everything that I shared with you, I don't put behind a paywall. I don't advertise garbage. I just don't do it. What I do is I give you the hardcore facts, evidence, and receipts. All I can do is show you what's real, what's true. As Q says, at the end of the day, it will be entirely up to you to make that choice. Whether you take the red pill or whether you take the blue pill. I want to say also thank you to those that have donated, contributed, shared me coffees. I appreciate it. Okay. It goes to, as I said, expenses, keeping the lights on. Say thank you to all of you for your lovely support, your lovely words. Please, it gives us the drive to keep going, to keep punching through, because we ain't doing it for the money. We're doing it to empower people. I'm not an influencer, I'm an empowerer, and I'm proud of it. God bless you all, and thank you. See you soon.
We're going to get into Jasar and Asara, but even Charlie Ward said when
they slide through shadows, whisper thin, with twisted smiles and plastic skin. They reel you in with poison words, promising diamonds, selling dirt. Their eyes are hollow, reflections lost, built on deceit, no matter the cost. They play the fool, they play the friend, but you're just another means to an end. Grifters and con men lurking in the night, masters of darkness hiding in plain sight. They take your soul and leave you bare. Grifters and con men, they don't care. Get up! Get up! Reaching cold as steel, trade your truth for a crooked deal. They'll make you laugh, make you trust, till everything precious turns to rust. They wear your secrets like a crown, smiling wide as they track you down. 1,000 lies, a practiced grin. They steal your heart, then they slip right in. Grifters and con men spinning their lies, a silver tongue, the devil's disguise. They'll leave you empty, no place to stand. Grifters and con men, blood on their hands. They haunt the alleys, the backroom bars, cashing in dreams, leaving scars. No remorse, no second thought, just the thrill of what they've caught. Grifters and con men, lasters of sin, with hollowed hearts and empty grins. They'll strip your soul and leave it there. Grifters and con men, they don't care. In every city, in every town, they weave their webs, they wear their crowns. Forever drifting shadows on the run. Grifters and con men, never done.